personal care or in home care as well, so household products. And these are mainstream products that are now available through our network of direct sellers and also through retail outlets such as Shopwise, Rustad. So basically, it's mainstream that we've entered already. The second group, wherein we didn't originally intend to have a major impact in, but through the course of business, we realized it was a huge group and a big impact where we can also make a difference, is the urban workers. So we have close to 300 employees at present, especially since we opened our manufacturing facility in Laguna. More than half of our employees are from the vulnerable sectors, which like Dr. Kim also mentioned a while ago, and our main contribution to basically improve the quality of life of our people is to pay them above minimum wage salary. So even before we actually reached ROI, it was company policy to pay above minimum wage in recognition of the fact that the legal minimum wage is not enough to meet the family living allowance that is needed for the Philippines. And especially also once we've moved out into the urban setting, we're now in the rural setting wherein the minimum wage is even lower. Our policy is the same. So what we pay our people in our company in Metro Manila is the same base salary that we pay in Laguna, where minimum wage is less than 350 pesos. So our regularized rate is 750. And as policy also, we do not have end contracts. So once they're regularized, they have tenure, have security of jobs in the company as well. A lot of our people came from those types of jobs wherein they only have jobs for 5 months and then they have to end contract and then start all over again. So those are the two major areas. So basically what we've learned in the past 6 years is, and our basic thesis was about employing the excellence and discipline of business to address social and environmental concerns. So it was founded, the company was founded by people from civil society, from private sector, but we're also volunteers in a development organization. But because of our corporate and business backgrounds, we sought to marry the two, development goals and business goals as well. And through the journey, we've realized that we were able to attract the educated and privileged classes also to be employed by us as managers, supervisors. Some of them took 70% pay cuts, 30% pay cuts coming from multinationals because we thought that we needed their expertise to really mainstream the company as well, and they enabled us to get into the retail stores to come up with really nice packaging to be more globally competitive in the market. And finally, the point that we wanted to make is for businesses that are also traditional to think about optimizing profit versus maximizing profit. So we all need to make a profit, but how much profit? That's the question. And I know that in this session, we're really here to support the social enterprises that are starting or have really focused on the vulnerable sectors, but I also make a plea to civil society and also to traditional businesses to also have special attention to the sectors and see them as not just a liability but really an asset towards inclusive growth for the whole Philippines as well. Because any traditional business can be retooled as a social enterprise. I mean, Dr. Lacanay has already established how easy it is. It's just a matter of willpower, I suppose. It's just a matter of social will, political will, and business will, I suppose. So that's it for me. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you for being here and among each other and among ourselves. I would like to add a few things to the short video that you saw a while ago, and it gives a glimpse of what we are doing, only a small part because the time was very limited. A few weeks ago I was in a press conference, and one of the journalists asked a member of our newest group that we started, "Are you being discriminated at?" Guess what was the answer of that person? That person said, "No, I'm not discriminated, I'm okay." That is the problem. People with disabilities, and I'm speaking here for people with disabilities, they don't even realize the discrimination they face every day and the exclusion from this society. So I'm talking for a sector among poor people that is even special within the poverty sector. It is a known fact that in the Philippines about 15% of the population have a disability. Actually, if you look at the poor sector, it's higher. Probably 20, maybe 25%. Why? Because poor people are less able to afford health services, they have less food, they have more problems to face. So disability and poverty is a vicious cycle. So when we look at the poverty alleviation program, and that's what we are talking about with the social enterprise bill, as a measure to uplift people that are poor into a better life situation, then we cannot leave out people with disabilities, and we have to make sure that they are integrated and included in what we are doing. Actually, the program that I'm representing evolved from a charity model. Disability for a long time was an issue of charity, and that's what that person who was asked, "Are you being discriminated?" He was taken care of. In a way, he had food, he had clothing, he was loved by his family, so he felt, "I'm okay." But he didn't realize how much he was lacking, and that's usually what we realize when we are dealing with groups, that initially the people are not aware of their situation, but as they get included, they notice that there are so many barriers in life and that they are not equally participating in the society, and it's in fact their right to equally participate, and it's the duty of the lawmakers as well as the state, as well as of course civil society organizations and everybody, every individual, to do his or her share in making that inclusion possible and a reality. So we started from a market oriented approach. We knew that people with disabilities should actually earn something out of what they can sell, and it started with dealing with schools and making school chairs, and it evolved over time into a major contract with the national government for supplying school chairs, school furniture to public schools. In 1998, a special provision was entered into the General Appropriations Act, and every year thereafter, which mandates the DepEd, the Department of Education, to buy 10% of their requirement from cooperatives of persons with disabilities. This experience is also part of the social enterprise bill that we are promoting. Why? Because the government has such a power by buying. It's not about giving tax breaks only, or giving funds for training, or some kind of often short-lived support, but it's actually the market that can really change the lives of many people. So in our case, over the years, we probably did, with the government alone, some 1 billion peso worth of contracts. So we're not talking micro or small business anymore, we're talking big business, and I think the other two examples also show that the social enterprise is not limited to doing small and micro business, but it aims actually to expand and to branch out and to widen the scope and include as many as possible and like share the skills and the access to as many people that would benefit from such. So it's a way of supporting and not controlling. It is ensuring that the poor as primary stakeholders or the disadvantaged, people with disabilities, in my case, others, farmers, etc., they are the one who increasingly, or even from the start, like in our case, we start by organizing cooperatives of persons with disabilities. So from the start they're in the driver's seat. They don't drive, nothing moves. We cannot run the cooperative. The cooperative is run by people with disabilities, by the stakeholders themselves. So it's support but not control, it's empowerment. What is often needed, what is usually needed is access to capital. It's not dole out, it's not giving money, but it is access, and again that is part of the social enterprise bill. Because, for example, doing those government contracts, one contract being 90 million peso worth of contract, requires a lot of capital. In fact, the government has the capital because they want to buy the chairs in the first place. But at the very moment, the situation is still that the cooperatives have to borrow the money from the money market, which for those cooperatives means something like 10 to 20% per annum interest payments. So you can imagine for like that big amount of money to produce the capital, how much interest is being paid to the bank and to the funding institution. So by having a mechanism where funding becomes more affordable, access to funding, often you don't even get the money. We had, even with development banks in the Philippines, we had situations when they would just not release money out of different concerns. But they basically almost killed the business, because without money you cannot complete a contract. Without a complete contract you cannot go and collect even the money that you already invested in your business. The other thing is know-how. Of course, if you're disadvantaged, like people with disabilities or other disadvantaged groups, you often don't go to school. As long as others do, you have a backlog of know-how. And it's very important that if you go into business, that you be able to access know-how. Markets, another issue. Of course, school chairs is one, but there can be many. In the video you saw planting trees, for example. There's a big demand globally that there's an exchange for carbon, for example. Forests are being replanted, etc. So there are people willing to put in money to create forests. It can be a job. It can be a job to care for that market, and it can be done by communities. Travel services, we are providing, for example, travel services to people with disabilities. Different. So what is important is that those support mechanisms are available, and FDI, the Foundation for Disabled, you probably noticed the spelling, it's not disabled, it is disabled, THESE, is a support institution, a social enterprise that supports the business of the poor and the primary stakeholders. And we try to, or we aim to link up and bridge gaps when it comes to those resource deficits. And therefore we are also a hybrid organization, because we are combining those different aspects while we have to survive financially, because there is no other way to continue what we are doing. Aside from this direct market involvement, of course we see the progress of people due to the training and capacity building efforts. So from a kind of underdeveloped in terms of capacity person, they become more developed. Of course, they also realize they are disadvantaged, so that comes along with it. But we also build confidence, because they have to face those barriers, and they are the ones who are the agents of change when it comes to removing those barriers. So they build confidence, and they actively, together with their communities, can then remove the barriers. It builds a track record. If you have done something, somebody starts believing in you and you can do more. So this is another benefit, aside from just doing a certain contract, but it builds track record for people. And it creates acceptance in society. I was many times witnessing how our people now, being a buyer, say, of wood, of steel, of screws, of whatever inputs in their production, suddenly they are the one asking from a supplier, and the supplier doesn't look at them as a disabled. They look at them as a partner in business, and they have hard negotiations about that. So it's a very different attitude from the original charity model, where it's a kind of begging, thank you for giving me something, attitude to, well, I'm here in the driver's seat and you give me your best price, or I buy according to this schedule, etc. So it changes the perspective, and that's the change of mindset. It starts in the mind of people with disabilities or the vulnerable groups, but it has to go to the society, to everybody, to look at people with disabilities differently and to allow them to use their capacity, their abilities in order to contribute something to this society. So I hope, and that's the way I want to end with a message to the Congress, that we find, and if we pass that law to include that provision on financing, that should, for example, also include the guarantee requirements for government contracts. Very important, because we cannot ask those vulnerable groups who start from zero or nothing to provide the guarantee for themselves, but it must be the government and the structure itself to have a mechanism where if they pull themselves out of poverty, that the guarantee that we stand beside them and behind them is provided by all of us, because we are a solidarity group. Yeah, and market, as I said earlier, very important, and I hope that there is a clear way to accessing more markets, different markets. The debate is a good example. It can be similar things, I'm very sure, if we are open enough to say, well, let's see what is possible, and let's give preferential to that what is possible. Why 10% only? Why not 20, 30%? You could immediately double, triple the number of people that have employment, because it's known how to do it. It's not trying out something new. It's just multiplying it and making the size bigger and having more people benefit. So, thank you.
I represent Bote Central, it's our family corporation. I also wear the hat of representing the Philippine Coffee Alliance in behalf of the Filipino coffee farmers. So the video that you saw a while ago is in Mount Matutum, General Santos. So I will tell you a very, very short story. The first time I went up to Mount Matutum to introduce coffee to them, I need to bring back again their love for coffee. That was in 2004. So we talked to the 80-year-old chieftain of the tribe, the leader of the tribe. First time I went up there together with my husband, he was not talking to us. He kept quiet the whole time that we were there. So we were just talking and talking and talking one way. So he was just listening, and I didn't even know if he understood us. So we went back to the city, General Santos, and probably 2 weeks, 3 weeks after, we did a second visit to the chieftain. Then, that second visit, he was the one talking and talking and talking. He was so excited about our second visit because we had already met an agreement that we will start coffee in their area. Mount Matutum used to be a kidnap for ransom area, but now they are known as the coffee community in General Santos. As you've seen in the video, they supply now coffee to the different hotels in General Santos. So whatever business model we have as Bote Central, from processing of coffee beans, from the green beans to the cup that you drink, farmers are even better positioned than us because farmers have the land and they grow the coffee themselves. So it is their every right and privilege that farmers should earn more than I do. So it is our business model to share the same thing as they have. So we now have, since 2004, when we introduced coffee agribusiness to the coffee farmers, we have now 45 community-based coffee enterprises run, owned, managed by the coffee farmers, the women and the youth. So my plea to government and to civil society is let us support Filipino coffee farmers by drinking Filipino coffee. I hope that the congressmen will have some resolution. This is no joke. I hope that you will have a resolution wherein you will drink and serve Filipino produced farmers from the farmers themselves. It doesn't have to be my brand. We have co-opetition. It's a new word we have coined. It is both cooperative and competition because we cannot have healthy or we live in a competitive society. Healthy competition is good. So we let the coffee farmers compete among themselves in a way so that they will have better quality and have more coffee beans. We import coffee right now despite being a coffee producing country. Sad to say, all the coffee establishments that the major market that we have here, Filipinos are coffee drinkers just like Koreans. But we still import coffee. And the sad fact is that not the coffee that is served in most establishments here, in the major hotels, the casinos, the restaurants, they don't get Filipino grown coffee. My plea to the gentlemen here and the ladies, let's have a resolution.